With over 400 million people living with diabetes around the world, and that number growing rapidly, the challenges of management and prevention of diabetes are ever increasing. Now, diabetes experts from basic scientists to clinicians are coming together from across the globe to San Francisco, USA, to work to meet these challenges. Tech hub of the West Coast and gateway to the Pacific, this week the city will play host to discussions on everything from islet biology to epidemiology, genetics to nutrition. Bringing you the very latest research, clinical trials results, and state-of-the-art technology, this is the American Diabetes Association's 79th Scientific Sessions, and we're ADA TV. Welcome back to ADA TV, coming to you from the 79th Scientific Sessions of the American Diabetes Association. We've heard from presidents, top scientists, chefs, and educators. And now, as some of the meeting's major embargoes are lifted, we're bringing an in-depth look at some of this year's clinical trial results, as well as expert opinions on diabetes' biggest issues. Let's see what's coming up.
It's a big step forward. It's the first drug, at least in Europe, that is approved for type 1 diabetes after insulin, after 1922. And so I believe with all the caution that we need, it's a big step forward.
Maybe diabetologists will become more likely to cardiologists with all this fancy, EKGs and everything. So it does lead our profession, I believe, into a different era, if you want, or a different way of looking at what we are doing every day.
I'm at heart a scientist. I get the aha moment and the kick of seeing something that's never been seen before, and that's shared with whatever other scientists work on. Good scientists, I think, always get that thrill of discovery.
Really excited today. There's a lot of great sessions. Two of them that I'm really looking forward to. One is on circadian rhythm. So we've all talked about how sleep deprivation and jet lag can have metabolic consequences. And so there's a session on circadian rhythms at 8 a.m. talking about what those molecular mechanisms are. There's another session on mTOR cellular signaling. So we are still in 2019 still trying to figure out what's downstream of the insulin receptor and how insulin can have its myriad of effects on different tissues at different times. So we've been studying insulin action for years, and one of the downstream targets that have been of particular interest is mTOR, which responds not only to insulin but to nutrients. And first discovered for its role in cancer, it's clearly got a role in many other cellular processes like the regulation of lipogenesis and lipid metabolism. And now we're understanding new roles for it in tissues like fat. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a great session. So the other session that I'm really excited about is called Major Advances in Discovery in Diabetes. It's something new that we're trying this year to bring together clinicians and basic scientists. If you are a clinician that wants to hear a little bit more about bench science, or if you're a bench scientist who wants to hear about what is really exciting about clinical trials, or if you're just someone interested in hearing Julian Zerath and Dan Drucker, two great scientists, to hear what they think are the most important things that happened over the last year, it's going to be an exciting session. So I've really enjoyed being on the planning committee. It's a chance to take what you think is the best science and the most exciting science and bring it together for your colleagues.
SGLT2 inhibitors have been approved for people with type 2 diabetes in many countries and are helping many patients around the world keep blood glucose low. But could these drugs be used for people with type 1 diabetes? To discuss this issue, I'd like to be joined by two experts on the subject, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And obviously there is a lot of discussion about if these inhibitors can be used for type 1. Why don't we begin with some background on the success we're seeing on the SGLT2 inhibitors?
Yes, well, actually we have 3 different compounds which have been studied in a broad clinical trial setting, and they, in my mind, have shown a great benefit. They are lowering A1C, they are not increasing hypoglycemia as we usually see when A1C is lowered. They reduce glycemic variability, they reduce elevated blood pressure, and they have a weight loss effect as well. So it's a whole bag of potential benefits.
How long have these been considered for type 1, and what makes you think that this might be an option? I'll ask you.
Well, the drugs have been used off-label since they were first approved by the regulatory agencies. So we have lots of case reports of individuals with type 1 diabetes using the drugs. And it's important to understand that historically there have been very few options for people with type 1 diabetes beyond insulin. So having those options really is an unmet need that we need to be exploring.
Yeah, if we talk about the differences between T1 and T2, that must make it challenging.
On the one hand, yes. On the other hand, no, because what we are currently facing in type 1 as in type 2, that people are dying of a very high cardiovascular mortality. Recent data from the Swedish registry show that if a girl develops diabetes before age 10, she is losing 17 years of her life compared to her peers, and for boys it's 14 years. So it's still, although we have really made a lot of improvements, some data show there is still a lot of unmet need in terms of cardiovascular mortality in type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
So are there some concerns?
There are. So there's a fundamental difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes in terms of risks of ketosis. And these drugs have an effect on ketone body generation. Diabetic ketoacidosis is a potentially fatal complication of type 1 diabetes. And even in the type 2 population, we were seeing it occurring with these drugs. The risk, and it's a very real one, is that in type 1 diabetes, unless individuals are very cautious and monitor their ketone levels, the risk of diabetic ketoacidosis actually goes up anywhere from 5 to 17-fold with these drugs.
So how do you make them safe? Broad question, I know.
No, but it's actually a very good question, because the whole international consensus came together and actually discussed that. And it is about patient selection. You have to select the right patient for it. It is about education, because what we have been successful in doing is reducing the rate of hypoglycemia in the overall population. What we have not been successful is reducing DKA, and this is also an educational issue in the broad population of diabetes teams as well as patients. So we believe it can be done, but we certainly need to do it because it's clearly a risk, not only with this type of drugs, but in the general type 1 population.
Yeah, so if we look at just the progress we're seeing with type 1 patients, how hopeful are we?
In specific reference to the DKA risk in type 1 diabetes, the Type 1 Diabetes Exchange has data that would suggest that about 5% of individuals with type 1 diabetes develop DKA annually. In the controlled trials of SGLT2 inhibitors in type 1 diabetes, their interventions were able to drop that rate to about 1%. So the mitigation factors can come into play. The concern is, can we duplicate those mitigation factors in the general population that have been shown to be effective in the controlled clinical trials?
You know, and lastly, are we looking in the right direction, or are there other paths we should be also exploring?
Well, as I said before, I mean, we still have a huge unmet need in type 1 diabetes, but I really think those drugs are a big step forward, because what my patients tell me, once they take this drug, from day one, their glycemic variability is going down. So they immediately see an effect that their glucoses are much more predictable, and they have a much better day if they wake up more or less with the same glucose every morning. And so I really believe it's a big step forward. It's the first drug, at least in Europe, that is approved for type 1 diabetes after insulin, after 1922. And so I believe, with all the caution that we need, it's a big step forward.
And you agree?
I agree to a point. I think that the individuals with type 1 diabetes who choose to use this therapy need to be aware of the risks, and need to be aware that as they lower their insulin doses, there's a threshold that they cannot go beyond.
Well, I appreciate your wealth of knowledge, both of you gentlemen, and thank you so much, and enjoy your time here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great insights there. Hopefully more work can be done to help patients manage their diabetes. Now let's leave the Moscone for a little while and take a look at some of our adventures before the meeting. Let's head to Asia now and A-STAR's Singapore Institute for Clinical Sciences, where researchers are doing great work looking at the impact gestational diabetes can have on long-term health.
GUSTO is the acronym for a study that we call Growing Up in Singapore Towards Healthy Outcomes. This is a birth cohort that we started about 10 years ago in 2009. We recruited about 1,200 women in the first trimester of pregnancy, and then we followed them and their babies up until the point where they delivered their children. And we've been following up the children and the families ever since. The Singapore Institute for Clinical Sciences, or SICS, is a research institute of the A-STAR that focuses on human conditions. And the one condition that we are particularly interested in is metabolic disease.
Women who were diagnosed with gestational diabetes are themselves at risk of developing type 2 diabetes in the future. One of the surprising things in Singapore is that within 5 years, 13% of our GDM mothers have already got type 2 diabetes, and a further 30% have got pre-diabetes.
The Human Development Research Centre is meant to be an integrated facility for multidisciplinary research. So essentially it's a one-stop shop for us to do research in babies, infant toddlers, children, all the way to adulthood, and it covers all sorts of disciplines, including cognition and metabolic outcomes. So like all metabolic disorders, we will expect some of the lifestyle attributes, like for example nutrition, as well as physical activity, to affect one's odds for GDM. So in our group, we actually find that high physical activity is associated with lower GDM risk, especially in the overweight and obese group of women. Nutrition-wise, we find that deficiency in certain vitamins like vitamin B12 and vitamin D actually affects one's risk of GDM as well and increases one's fasting glucose. There's also other lifestyle attributes that can contribute but is lesser known. So for example, like sleep and sleep quality. So in GUSTO, we actually find that women with short sleep duration of less than 6 hours per night or have poor sleep quality have higher risk of GDM.
So in terms of prevention, I think it's good to let the mothers prepare themselves before they are pregnant, so to reduce the incidence of obesity or overweight status, to have appropriate gestational weight gain, and that's not excessive, and of course to watch the diet and continue to lead a healthy lifestyle throughout their pregnancy.
The proportion of women who manage to regulate their glucose levels just on lifestyle changes alone is actually quite good, because only 5% or so of women require insulin therapy. And this is a very low proportion by comparison to other Western countries.
In the past, we have always been only doing high-risk screening, but I think our GUSTO study have revealed that there are many women who did not satisfy the high-risk criteria, but yet they are found to be diabetic.
One major step forward is really to do a universal screening on all women who are pregnant. That's one way to detect everybody at risk.
Universal screening for gestational diabetes has been introduced in all the public maternity units in Singapore.
We will keep on trying to find out more about gestational diabetes and what the risk factors are for women for developing this condition.
Over to Ohio now, where diabetes rates are reaching epidemic levels. The team at Ohio University Diabetes Institute are working hard to support the community as well as study the disease.
One of the things that I think makes the Diabetes Institute program unique is its trifold mission. It's not just about research, it's research, education, and caring for folks in our community through services. So having the Diabetes Institute and Heritage College be part of Ohio University has really given us a leg up in caring for the community and researching. We're part of a large, complex university where we're able to do interprofessional education and interprofessional research to really work on the problems that we most see here in Southeast Ohio.
We have a primary care research going on here, basic research, translational and clinical research in diabetes area as well as cardiovascular. So we focus on fat metabolism in relation to type 2 diabetes, obesity and cardiovascular research. So we are studying basic mechanisms of storage and breakdown of fat in human body. So for that we use various types of models. We also use mouse models to study what is going on in fat metabolism and how it is associated with metabolic disease. My goal is to develop therapeutics for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and we are fast moving towards that. We have actually identified molecules that are regulating fat in the body in a very optimal fashion.
Diabetes Institute is actually foundational to the Heritage College. Built into our DNA is taking care of the community, and the Diabetes Institute has allowed us to really significantly take care of our communities here in Southeast Ohio.
We are in rural Appalachia. It's the north central Appalachia, so we study the role of culture and how Appalachian culture impacts diabetes from not only the patient perspective, but also the provider perspective. One of the most exciting things that's happened this past year is we have a virtual reality simulation project. And this is a collaboration with many of the schools on campus. What we are aiming to do is we have taken an Appalachian diabetes patient with type 2 diabetes. Her name is Lula May. She's a 72-year-old person from rural Appalachia, and she's had diabetes for 22 years. And the goal is to educate the providers about the culture and also to help them identify social determinants of health so that we can reduce implicit bias as it relates to these social determinants of health as well as culture. We're doing the same thing on a website so that we can then reach a wider market so that anybody can do it on a website.
As Executive Dean of the Heritage College, I was blessed to walk into a time where the college got a transformational gift from the Osteopathic Heritage Foundation, $105 million. A big piece of that was for research, and a big focus of the research was for diabetes research.
The Osteopathic Heritage Foundation is a private foundation based in Columbus, Ohio, and our mission is to improve the health and quality of life in the community through education, research, and service consistent with our osteopathic heritage. The Foundation's support of Ohio University, the Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine, and its Diabetes Institute advances the Foundation's mission on many different levels. I look forward to continued partnership with the University and the Institute as we collectively work to prevent diabetes in southeastern Ohio.
So I've been in healthcare for a long time, and what I've realized is just like all politics are local, all healthcare delivery is local too. What we've learned here as we've studied Southeast Ohio is that the rate of diabetes is about 20%, or almost 1 in 5 people in Southeast Ohio, particularly around Athens, has diabetes.
The focus of the Diabetes Institute is to improve the quality of life for people living with diabetes, and we do that through our research, our education, our patient care, and our community outreach. People in this region often experience a lot of barriers to managing their diabetes.
5 of the 7 counties in this region have a poverty level of 20% or higher. There are a lot of transportation issues. This is a very rural region. We don't have public transportation. We have a lot of housing issues, so we have a very large homeless population in this region.
We offer our programs in outlying areas of the county to make them accessible for individuals. And in addition, we offer our programs at little to no cost to make them affordable for individuals who need the care the most. Mobile health units address a common barrier to care, and they take the care to people where they need it. The care is often provided in response to an unmet healthcare need, and it's often provided to people who lack any other source of medical care. The Heritage Community Clinic is able to provide quality medical care, and with the benefit of funders is able to provide that care at no cost to patients. In this region of Ohio, there's a shortage of diabetes specialists, so our fellowship program trains primary care physicians to care for this complex condition, and it provides them the knowledge and the skills that they need to do this well.
So I think the future is bright for the Diabetes Institute. We've formed a strong foundation that we're going to be able to grow from, and I'm looking forward to all the great things to come.
Last night saw the opening networking reception for the 79th Scientific Sessions, which also included an event dedicated to the Women's Interprofessional Network of ADA, helping women succeed in the field of diabetes. We stopped by.
WIN-ADA is the Women's Interprofessional Network of the American Diabetes Association. It is a membership group that's really designed to highlight the voice of women in diabetes research and clinical practice and elevate the contributions of women at the American Diabetes Association and in the field. They try to bring together a network of women scientists, clinicians, researchers, educators from all aspects of diabetes practice and research, and create a mentorship, support, promotion, networking group.
We are a new group and have been formed just about 2 years ago. And now we have over 2,000 members. So I think it's vital that women become more prominent in the ADA and more involved in their own career development and in mentoring other women who are interested in diabetes. Tonight is the WIN reception that we hold every year at the American Diabetes Association Sessions. And this evening we're giving out abstract awards, and we're also giving out the Lois Jovanovich Award to Elizabeth Seacrest.
Well, I think this is something that really shows ADA's commitment to advancing women scientists and clinicians. I think it's an outstanding opportunity to be able to network and connect with a group of really impressive and enthusiastic supporters of WIN-ADA here at the American Diabetes Association. And hopefully it'll give access to resources, tools, and opportunities for women coming from all aspects of diabetes clinical care and research to be able to advance.
Throughout the year we have networking events. We're going to have a full-day symposium in November in Indianapolis, which I think will be quite interesting. We also have symposia at the ADA postgraduate course, which will occur next February here in San Francisco.
Holding a symposium today on the first day of the Scientific Sessions and having our networking event this evening at Scientific Sessions just kickstarts the conference for women to be able to connect, meet colleagues, network, and enjoy the rest of Scientific Sessions, and we're starting it off strong.
Now over to Israel's Hadassah University Hospital, where researchers are working on a new family of drugs which may have a major effect on cardiovascular and renal outcomes in patients with diabetes.
Diabetes is an epidemic. Worldwide, there are around 450 million patients with diabetes. This figure is predicted to rise to 650 million patients in the next 20 years.
In Israel, 30 years ago, we have 200,000 patients, and today we have 600,000 patients. Diabetes is also a social and financial disaster. In Israel today, 30% of the expenses on health goes to diabetes. Every third child that is now born will develop diabetes in his lifetime.
Low socioeconomic groups and ethnic minorities in Israel are disproportionately affected by diabetes. In Ethiopian immigrants, diabetes prevalence dramatically increases the longer they live in Israel. Arab women show twice the rate of diabetes as Jewish women. Systemic change is needed to address this, and civil society and community action is key.
واليوم أصبحنا كما ينهج الأمريكيون والأوروبيون، يعني في سمنة أكثر، في سكر أكثر، والحياة الطبيعية خفت أكثر. ومن هذا المنطلق نحن نشاهد أنه يجب أن نفعل وبجدارة من أجل الأكل الصحي والفعاليات الرياضية. طبعا مجلس المحلي في دائرة الكرمل وفي هناك توجيهات واضحة على أنه نعمل بشكل واضح من أجل ما يسمى نعيش حياة صحي.
Research indicates preventing obesity in children is key in the fight against diabetes.
We did an outstanding study on 17,160 diabetic patients, demonstrating that SGLT2 can prevent the progression to renal end-stage disease, or can prevent heart failure in a broad population, also in diabetic patients who are relatively healthy. However, there was large proportion of patients who will still deteriorate in spite of the drug. The meaning is that the time to prevent diabetes is at the very early stage of your life in order to prevent obesity, which is the main reason for diabetes. Several large studies, the largest of them is a retrospective, prospective study on over 50,000 children aged 17, demonstrated clearly that children who are obese at the age of 2 to 6 will be the children who are obese at the age of 17.
At the Child Health and Sports Center, at the Mayer Medical Center, children with their family support are treated for obesity using exercise, nutrition, and behavioral intervention.
We know today that obesity starts very early in life, so we have to treat it as early as possible. The advantage of starting at the age of 2 or 3 up to the age of 6, A, is we know that these are crucial years for the development of obesity, and B, these are the years where children are younger, we can change their behavior, and we have schools and preschools and kindergartens which children go to. Preschool teachers has enormous power on the development of childhood behavior. If you have a good intervention program to promote health in preschools, probably those children will remain more healthy than other children who are not into those programs.
At Beersheba Kindergarten, Carasso Science Park, children are taught about healthy lifestyles and positive behavior through learning about science.
הילדים אצלנו בגן מתמחים במקצועות הסטם, אנחנו מעוררים בהם את התשוקה לחקור וללמוד את הסביבה הקרובה אליהם, ומתוך כך את הסביבה שקרובה אליהם הם בעצם גם לומדים להעריך את הסביבה ולדאוג לסביבה ולעצמם, ולהיות אנשים בעצם הרבה יותר טובים בעתיד.
Israel is one of the few countries to have a national plan to treat and prevent diabetes.
Part of the National Diabetes Plan is prevention of obesity in the population. We also have a coalition of people. Everybody who have interest in health in Israel are being gathered in healthy lifestyle. So we are now leading nearly 2 million people, 1/4 in the country, together as a very strong group that can push the government. We also have a strategic partner with the food industry. The food industry now understand that they have to put a lot of their effort to change their food, to reduce sugar, to reduce salt, to reduce fat, and also to reduce the size of the food. But more than this, they have to help us in the education of the very young population for a healthy lifestyle. We have a strategic partner with the Ministry of Education, and we are now building a very unique digital program for a healthy lifestyle for children. And we have partnership with the Minister of Health.
Mainly ultra-processed food that has a lot of fat, saturated fat, a lot of sugar, and a lot of salt will be marked with a front-of-pack labeling. Some schools have like kiosks or a cafeteria. So we had a regulation passed last year that all the food that is sold in school will be healthier, and there will be no unhealthy products, no ultra-processed food, etc. Around 400,000 children are getting lunch at schools. So now they're having only healthy food because it's a huge market, the advertisement and marketing of unhealthy products and unhealthy foods. So we had a committee that was working within the last year, and they had the recommendation. They are now writing the recommendations to have a regulation over the food marketing to children.
I am very optimistic. Already we see on the last 4 years reduction in obesity in children. The coalition that we have now between the government, with the industry, with those who have high interest in the health of the population, give a high promise that within 20 years we will see great reduction in the development of obesity in children aged 16 and 17, and with it, great reduction in diabetes, diabetes mortality, and cardiovascular mortality.
Next, we go over to Qatar Diabetes Association, leading efforts in Qatar and the Middle East to promote the prevention, care, and management of diabetes.
The vision of the Qatar Diabetes Association is to raise the quality of life in Qatar through the awarenesses of the healthy lifestyles, management, and prevention of diabetes in Qatar.
Around 17% of the population, the Qatari population, has diabetes, which is almost the double of the global percentage in the world. And around 65% are obese and overweight, and these are two major risk factors for developing type 2 diabetes. It's still a work in progress to encourage the people, those who are aware that they have a risk, to act on it. And that takes a bit of a while.
We try to reach to all the community. We actually, for example, go to the malls to do the risk assessment. We have a mobile unit that we go to the remote area where also we educate people about diabetes. To the site of work, we go there.
We see employees in such different organizations, different sectors, and we have a format where we're following it. It says, are you at risk for diabetes? And believe it or not, through these campaigns, we find people with diabetes and don't know. The challenges for the prevention is that a lot of awareness is needed and a lot of education is needed about the food types and how to choose a healthy meal and the exercise. And I think the biggest challenge here in Qatar is the weather. So people have so many excuses that where to exercise when the temperature is very high.
Obesity and overweight is high among adolescents, around 40%. We expect an increase in diabetes, type 2 diabetes, among the young population. And that's the way we see the future should be focusing on working on avoiding type 2 diabetes in the youth. For schools, we start making the children aware of healthy eating and what would be the actions that they need to take in order to avoid having type 2 diabetes. And this is the same done in universities as well. The other thing that we aim to and we hope we can reach is to go back to the source and go back to the parents, the way they influence the eating behavior of their children.
We use the social media now. Sometimes we use the SMS. We use the occasions of some days, for example, how to fast in Ramadan. We have a walk-in clinic. The people come here, they ask about diabetes, they ask about the symptom of diabetes, how I can prevent diabetes. If you have overweight, so we have 2 gyms here. We have 3 dietitians. We're giving a program how to eat healthy food. We have a healthy kitchen. We also educate people how to prepare healthy food.
We use this facility for our children with diabetes to come and learn how to prepare healthy snacks. We also invite mothers of children with diabetes to prepare recipes and count the carbohydrate in these recipes. And for our gym participants, they come and do a healthy recipe competition in this kitchen.
In the association here, we are a team of diabetes educators. I'm the physician here. And we have a food care nurse and a team of dietitians who work in the dietary departments. When a person is newly diagnosed, he has so many questions in mind. So we try to sit with him, answer these questions, and make a plan to control his diabetes.
We are there offering continuous education to people with diabetes, because the trend that we see is that after they receive the first sessions of education, people tend to be selective in retaining the information they want and selective in acting on this information or in developing the skills that have to do with taking care of their diabetes. And we realize that all of this information should be reinforced. 54% of them have a decrease in their A1C because they make changes in their food choices. Around 1/3 of them reach and maintain their weight loss. And this is all due to the counseling on behavior change that the team employs as the first step to encourage the person with diabetes to take care of himself or herself.
Each year, QDA conducts a diabetes and prevention programs targeted for children and at youth, and it's been ongoing for 20 years, our diabetes camp for the children. And for the prevention camps, it's for teenagers ages to 11 to 17 years old. We have many workshops ongoing through these camps, such as learning about injection techniques, about nutritional workshops, carbohydrate counting. So basically just the 101 of diabetes. The most important thing that we get out of the camps and that helps the patients and their families is self-confidence, so that they have their own key of dealing with diabetes and to prevent it. So they also have the support of their family, their friends, and also the support of QDA.
Education is very important. Educate people about diabetes, and then we have all the stakeholders should work together to use the benefits of other countries in order to overcome diabetes in Qatar.
It's time to talk to delegates again here at the Moscone. Our question today, what do you think will be the next big breakthrough in diabetes, from basic science to technology?
So the next big thing in diabetes research, I still do believe that it could be something for the treatment of type 2 diabetes based on the mechanisms of bariatric surgery. It could be some endoscopic device for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, something that you can easily implant and easily explant if you need to. Because I think we still need combination of medical therapy and something else.
I look for more active involvement of patients to online education and interactive education settings. Technology and education is my interest. In near future, I expect more active use of technology in diabetes education.
I'm very excited about all the research we're seeing at the scientific sessions on artificial pancreases. I think the next big thing is going to be the translation of these systems from research into clinical practice and reaching as many people as possible, so allow them to have better glucose control and reduce their burden of care.
There's so many things, I think, that are on the horizon already. I think we're going to have a major breakthrough with the bionic pancreas, and we're going to figure out how we are delivering insulin as well as glucagon and controlling diabetes in a more automated system very soon. I think we're learning a lot more about the inflammation pathways that are involved in both diabetes, insulin resistance, and obesity. When it comes to obesity, we're still trying to understand the mechanisms by which obesity and diabetes and insulin resistance specifically are linked, and I think we're getting much closer to that too.
I think the combined dual agonists, which have shown very significant weight loss in patients who have type 2 diabetes, I think that's going to be the big breakthrough that we're all really excited about. Given the understanding that obesity and type 2 diabetes are such intrinsically linked disorders. So yeah, I think that's really the next step forward.
I'd like to think individualized predictability for the postprandial glycemic response. I saw an article back in 2015 where they try and analyze that and had like a 70% accuracy. I think that'll come around with all these algorithms they're coming out with for the pumps and such. I think eventually we'll get there.
Let's visit Hygieia now, who are using new technology to help people with diabetes more easily reach their glucose targets, filling the gaps that struggling health systems are facing.
Over the years, diabetes has become a very common condition, and still we are not able to prevent premature complications and death despite identifying the hormone and being able to provide the hormone to patients.
Insulin therapy has now been around for nearly 100 years, but clinical trials say you need to adjust the insulin on a regular basis, consistently, week by week, month by month, year by year. And that's what makes insulin effective.
Insulin is not an easy therapy to use. You need a lot of help and support. And because of the demands on our healthcare system, we weren't able to provide that support.
Because there are so many patients, nobody can see their patients once or twice a week to make those adjustments.
And therefore the majority of patients using insulin do not achieve therapy goals and continue to have complications.
There were days when I would literally have crying spells because I'd just get frustrated and think, oh God, what am I doing wrong and why do I feel like this? I'm so sick to my stomach.
My readings were very, very high off the scale. I was admitted to hospital 3 times because of my diabetes.
It's hard to explain, but it's just a horrible feeling when you get a low blood sugar.
Our patients deserve that when they start on insulin, that they get adequate support.
The need is to match a clinical trial in real-world clinical practice.
DNAV closed that gap. It gave the patients all that additional help and support that they needed to use insulin successfully.
Finally, we have some technology that can help bring this to real-life clinical practice.
DNAV has been able patients to titrate their own insulin without constant supervision of their providers. It took the guesswork out of insulin doses.
Patients come in, we establish a baseline and a treatment plan, and we set them with the DNAV technology. And they take the app and they go home with it, they will measure their glucose. The app will then adjust their insulin doses as often as needed.
That little device is worth its weight in gold to me.
I was referred to the DNAV system from my endocrinologist, and it's just so easy to control with this compared to the old-fashioned way, kind of guessing and the carbs counting.
I would prick my finger, drop of blood, and the machine would give me my reading of my blood glucose. Then I would press again, and it would then tell me what to inject. It took all the worry, all the hassle out of it.
I just feel so much better and in control with the blood sugar now, so I don't have the lows and the highs.
I consider the DNAV, it's like my partner. It kind of keeps me going and keeps me in line when I'm not doing the right thing.
It's not just a device, it's a service as well, and that's, I think, what makes it rather special.
This is a journey. So we are there to support the patient. We're trying to make you comfortable with using new technology.
And it's got me down to about a 6.1 right now, so it's been fantastic.
I have a wee notebook that I keep my own record in, and I have kept it from 2015, and my HbA1c has been below 7 from then to now, and that's fantastic. That's my aim, to keep it below that, and with the help of the machine, I'm doing that.
We definitely have had a pre-DNAV and a post-DNAV experience in terms of supporting patients, no doubt about that. But the thing about it is it's completely sustained. It goes on and on and on. We've had patients using the service for over 5 years and still getting excellent A1C results. So you don't tend to get any drift. The A1C drops and it stays good for a long period of time, and that's very encouraging for us and for our patients.
This is really a big breakthrough that we've been waiting for, hoping for, and looking forward to for many years. It's time to use technology like DNAV and others out there to titrate the insulin based on glucose patterns on a regular basis and achieve optimal glucose control.
Now to Sanofi, whose work is allowing patients, their families, and clinicians to manage diabetes in the way that works for them.
Diabetes is a chronic disease, and it has as its consequences both what we call micro and macrovascular complications. That's both small blood vessels and large blood vessels. So people with diabetes are at increased risk of kidney failure, neuropathy and tingling in the feet. In addition, large blood vessels, so heart attack and stroke, are very common in people with diabetes. And so this has become a public health crisis because of the growth of this epidemic. And let's remember, this is not just a US crisis. This is a worldwide crisis with over 400 million people living with diabetes every day. And if left unchecked at the current rates, this is going to grow. So the United Nations, the CDC, the World Health Organization, all of these organizations have called diabetes a global health crisis.
Sanofi has been in the diabetes space for over 100 years now. And so our commitment spans from the point of bringing innovative medicines to patients, as well as offering them solutions to be able to support their healthcare needs better. We all know and appreciate that every patient is unique. Every patient needs are needing to be individualized. At the same time, the healthcare needs are unique as well. When a patient, for example, gets diagnosed with diabetes, it's just a moment of extreme anxiety and stress. And we are here as a company, as a team, to help support the needs of patients. We do believe that through the innovation and products that we bring forward, we're able to offer unique opportunities for patients to be able to better manage their health, at the same time also have better quality of life.
It's imperative that we take this crisis seriously. We need to improve the way we eat, the way we walk, the way we move. And we also need to continue to develop medications for patients with diabetes to try to improve all of their risk, both their microvascular small vessel risk as well as their macrovascular risk. What we now know is that first, the patient should be the center of care. It's all about individualization and getting the patient to participate in the decision making. And what we find when that happens is that the patient's going to be much more willing to stick to the therapy.
It's crucial that we focus on what the patient goes through, what the individual patient journey is, from the point of diagnosis to really understanding what's grappling them, to the variability or the highs and lows, as we call it, in terms of managing their condition, in terms of understanding the environment they're in, the family circles they're in, the pressures they're under, and how they actually manage their conditions day in and day out. That is why Diabetes Your Type is what we are bringing forward. We are going to enable patients to truly appreciate what it means to be able to tailor their therapies. Even the recent American Diabetes Association, or the ADA's guidance on looking at standards of medical care, actually emphasizes the importance of individualizing treatment. And that's why the offerings we bring in through medicines, through education, through integrated care, as well as enabling healthcare access working with payers, is very, very important to helping manage patient lives.
In diabetes, we always talk about a team approach, right? It's not just me as a primary care physician or even an endocrinologist. We need a whole team that has different specialties to bring to bear on that individual patient.
With the Diabetes Your Type program, we want to be able to give a voice to every patient. We want to make sure we recognize that each patient is a unique individual with a need to be able to manage not just their condition, but also have the opportunity to lead a normal life. We understand and appreciate that although diabetes may be classified as type 1, type 2, or whatever it may be, we know that every patient needs to be catered to as an individual with an approach to disease management that's very holistic. And that's the reason Diabetes Your Type campaign actually focuses on the individual need of the patient, working not just with the patient, but with the healthcare providers and the payers to holistically provide solutions that will offer the improvements patients need.
This year sees the release of a new documentary looking at the lives of people living with type 2 diabetes, narrated by actor Viola Davis. Let's take a look at the trailer.
More than 30 million American adults are living with diabetes, and 90 to 95% have type 2 diabetes.
When you have diabetes, you have to do what you have to do. I mean, it's not a disease that goes away. It's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day.
I woke up, I couldn't see. My head was pounding. My body felt like I was walking underwater. I didn't know what was going on.
It never passed through my mind that I'm going to have diabetes, even though I know that I have it in my genes because of my family history. I never know that I would be diagnosed with diabetes.
When they told me I was diabetic, he gave me a pamphlet, and that was it.
This isn't a problem, this is an epidemic.
There is a semblance of shame that is forced upon people with diabetes. I didn't choose to get diabetes.
If current trends continue, by 2030, the prevalence of diabetes in the United States will increase by 54%.
Why is it important to stand up for diabetes? Because nobody else is doing it.
My life passion now is to educate as many people as I can about diabetes.
We all need to sound the alarm. Sound the alarm and help awaken the rest of the world to the seriousness of this disease.
Life is not over. It's not over. This is not the end of your life.
Walk proudly, and you can manage it.
Now to part 3 of our exciting look at the Hua Medicine's new glucokinase activator. With clinical trials in phase 3 across China, Hua has the support of some of the country's top doctors.
Hua Medicine's core value is patient first. Patient first means the patient's health and well-being will be Hua's first consideration. We need to understand the real situation of all the patients, focus on patients' personal design, and works with our physician to find a way to solve patients' real problems. Now, Hua Medicine is performing 2 pivotal phase 3 trials in China and covering over 100 hospitals.
中日友好医院是一个非常大的3级甲等医院，直属于卫计委领导。在这10年的过程中，我们牵头完成了国际多中心中国的研究，以及我们国内很多新药的注册研究。我们组织并且整个在监测这样一个研究过程中起了一个领导的位置。
我工作于南京市第一医院内分泌科，我们科主要服务于
糖尿病南京市的糖尿病病人，我们的门诊病人大概是1年12万。我们在 GK 激动剂这个华岭的这个 GK 激动剂的临床研究当中，
我是南京大学医学院附属鼓楼医院的内分泌科主任。这个华岭医药这个 Dorzagliatin 这个药呢，应该说我是从1期就开始进行。
大概像我们内分泌科，就我个人来讲的话，我1年的门诊量，因为在国外的话肯定会觉得真的是不可思议，我1年的门诊量有1万多人次，就我一个人。我们医院当时是参与了葡萄糖激酶激动剂的2期，以及我们现在3期的2个项目。
In Hua Medicine, we summarized our quality culture as 3 key words. The first is me. Everybody know how can they contribute to the quality. The second thing is we. How can we work as a team to solve quality problem? The third thing is right the first time. We should build a clear procedure to ensure everything to be right at the beginning.
和好几十家公司合作过很多几十个项目，感觉在和华岭这个团队，我们整个的合作是很愉快的，大家都非常认真，很努力的在把自己的职责完成的比较好。在临床试验当中，所谓患者为先，保证患者的安全性，对于患者的安全性，保护受试者的利益方面，我们是体现在最重要的一个位置。
这个患者为先，就是说刚才包括我们临床试验，我们都是本着病人随时可以退出试验。第二个呢，就是他们做了大量的这个为患者提供了很好的保险。第三个呢，就是我觉得它的药生产的质量，就是都是找的我们这个 GMP 符合 GMP 的这个生产厂家来做的这些药。那么我觉得这个也是为患者。
为什么难度很大呢？因为华岭当时想非常高质量的、高标准的要完成这一项研究的话，那相较于我们以前做的其他的项目，应该是标准最高的。这是第一个，从研究者的角度来讲，你怎么样要从这个关爱患者的角度，你要去关爱他，那么你讲的那种，跟他就觉得是为他好，他可能会依从性很高，这是第一个。第四个呢，他当然通过这种药物的临床研究，我们让病人养成了一个良好的那种习惯，一个慢病的管理的一个良好的习惯。
那么这个新药呢，是从降糖机制来说，有别于以往我们所有的降糖机制的药，能够预期得到它的安全性和效果的证据的话，那么一定会给患者增添了另外一个新的降糖的武器。所以从这个角度来说，它是以患者为先的。
Since the phase 3 trials initiated in 2017, we have organized 30 times educations, trainings, and investigator meetings to make high quality and high standard medicine to benefit our patient.
华岭来讲的话，我们每一年会开很多次的这种研究者会议，那么去讨论我们怎么样让这个研究做得更好。
这个研究者的会议呢，不但进一步使我们所有的研究者们了解 GKA 的它的这个作用机制，同时我们也复习了大量的前期的这样一个研究的结果。除了完成它的单药注册以外，也要完成跟2甲双胍联合的注册临床。302项目就是2甲双胍失效的2型糖尿病。
那么我们已经设计了 Dorzagliatin 跟 DPP-4 抑制剂的，以及 Dorzagliatin 跟这个 SGLT2 的这个药的这个联合的应用。
那么在这个临床研究过程当中，在2期和3期，我们有的感受是，第一个它没有出现这种低血糖，没有出现不明原因的低血糖，也没有出现过严重的低血糖，这是第一个。第二个，就我们中心来观察的，就是说目前为止没有出现，吃了这个药物以后出现肝肾损害的问题。就刚刚讲了，有的人出走的时候，他就非常，遗憾的就讲这个药物怎么还没有上市？那我们接下来怎么办
？With the smooth progress of the clinical trial, Hua Medicine is working with our strategic partners to build up a resilient, sustainable supply chain to meet the global demand in the future.
再用这个 dorzagliatin 肯定会有一个很好的将来这个方案的设计。我觉得包括跟国际上的一些，比如说在西方人当中的应用，这个联合开发。
ADA hosts some of the most exciting clinical trials results in the field of diabetes, with new research being discussed for the first time here at the scientific sessions. Now in a special feature, we hear about some work looking at CGM-based clinical targets and let experts take a close look at what it means.
A group from all over the world actually decided to do a consensus now more than 2 years ago on CGM, despite the fact that randomized controlled trials gave a very clear signal that it improves diabetes and reduces hypoglycemia. We had actually almost nothing to say where to go. So if you can make it 70% within time in range between 70 and 180 milligram per deciliter, you're likely as good as what used to be an A1C of 7. And this again is not critically supported by evidence, but there are indications that this may be the case. It would be nice for clinicians, for healthcare practitioners, as well as people with diabetes, to have a common presentation of the data.
My first question is, because we're so used to A1C and our world is very A1C focused, how do you position time in range, which I look at all the time with my patients, but how would you suggest that people use it? Should it replace A1C altogether? Should it be an adjunct to A1C?
I think there is no time to replace A1C. That would be premature, to a large extent premature. So our suggestion is to supplement it, to use it adjunctively. We just suggest that if CGM data are available in addition to A1C, this is the likely target that you should follow to speak approximately the same language as we used to for decades with A1C.
One of the things I think is when I look at the downloads from the CGM and I see a lot of time in and out of range but a reasonable A1C, I know that that patient's lived experience of diabetes is probably very different than someone who's just sort of oscillating within that range. And I think it help me understand my patients, and my patients understand really what's going on with their own body and their own blood sugars. So in all sorts of ways, I think this is a useful tool.
That's so true, and it also relates to the quality of life, what you're saying. So I very much agree with what you said.
That actually leads me to a question of separating measure of control over a longer period of time that A1C or time in range gives you, versus daily management of diabetes, which time of range may not play as much a role. And I wonder what the consensus group thought of that.
There are devices now that gives you a daily report on time in range. And this is exactly where we wanted to actually lead the way of development, so that people with diabetes actually would have, in addition to what they get when they see a healthcare practitioner with downloads and everything, they would have a day-to-day or sometimes even hour-to-hour report. Look, I mean, you're doing fine. Your time in range is 70+% in the last 6 hours. So, something's good with you.
It would be great if that's where the true and those devices will show it. But what it doesn't take into account the ability of provider to analyze this data.
We didn't go that far with current consensus, but we do want to convene people from different groups to think about or imagine a digital clinic. This is what you're saying. So to have a computerized system to analyze for you and to point these issues out, to make it faster, because most of us do not have time to do the analysis. But then, maybe diabetologists will become more likely to cardiologists with all this fancy, EKGs and everything. So it does lead our profession, I believe, into a different era, if you want, or a different way of looking at what we are doing every day.
I would say that the thing about the tool, or the notion that we can look at this, really makes it clear that we need everybody. So when you look at the data, you need a registered dietitian to work with the patient, and diabetes educators and pharmacists and everybody, because now if we have this tool, this metric, we need all hands on deck to really make a difference.
There were actually also individuals with diabetes on the panel, because our final goal actually is that this is adopted by people, that they can believe that finally this is something they can actually adopt, they can take into their lives.
It's not only time and range for the last couple of weeks, it's day to day, minute to minute. You live with this all the time. So we're on the right track.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you've done. Really appreciate it.
Now, he's played a major role in our understanding of human insulin resistance with the discovery of novel genetic mutations associated with defects in insulin signaling, helping patients in the United Kingdom as well as the rest of the world. I'm joined by this year's Banting Medal awardee, Sir Stephen O'Reilly. Well, congratulations, and thank you for joining me. Let's start from the very beginning. What got you started in working in diabetes?
Okay, well, I always wanted to be an endocrinologist. I loved hormones, and I loved the idea of diseases that you could treat in people. They were diseases you could diagnose but using biochemistry, and you could help people with proper targeted treatments. But I met a wonderful man called Robert Turner who said, the most interesting hormone is insulin. And in those days in Britain, you were either a diabetes person or you were an endocrine person. But Robert sort of taught me that you could be a diabetes person but still be an endocrinologist, because insulin was a fascinating hormone. That kind of kicked me off.
And there you were.
Some 30 years ago.
So tell me, what was one of your biggest breakthroughs?
Well, I guess in the first period of my research, I worked on people who were first-degree relatives of people with type 2 diabetes. And back then, really was almost a shibboleth that type 2 diabetes was an insulin-resistant condition. And what we discovered early on was that actually those relatives had really abnormal pancreatic beta cells. They were dysfunctional, they were not pulsing normally at an early stage. And though we published those papers and they really were very well recognized. So I understood the excitement of seeing something new really from the very early first year or two of research. But so that was a fantastic start, working in that lab in Oxford with Robert Turner.
So then what went into the making of this particular achievement?
Well, I guess it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, so I've been working in the area of diabetes for over 30 years and taking it a variety of angles and approaches to it. I suppose if there is one thing that I've been highlighted for doing, it's looking at unusual patients, and rather than saying because they're rare, they're not important, digging deep into those patients and trying to discover what the underlying mechanisms are. And sometimes those discoveries have led to very interesting findings which have been generalizable for the science of glucose control, the science of weight control. I think that's probably, in terms of my title of my lecture, which is Treasure Your Exceptions, it's those exceptional patients that have taught us so much more than the rarity of their condition.
When we talk about those exceptional patients, I believe that's part of your lecture tomorrow. So tell us what you'll be talking about.
Well, as I said, the lecture is called Treasure Your Exceptions, and the exceptions I'll be talking about are those unusual patients with either extreme insulin resistance, extreme obesity, from which we have learned so much. And also I'll be talking about the exceptional people I've been mentored by or have had the pleasure of working with over the last 30 years. And that's kind of the trope of tomorrow's talk.
Is that what drives you, the patients and the breakthroughs in the research? What is your motivating force?
I think there are two things. I'm at heart a scientist. I get the aha moment and the kick of seeing something that's never been seen before. And that's shared with whatever other scientists work on. Good scientists, I think, always get that thrill of discovery. But the pleasure of working as a medical scientist, and one that still sees patients, is that some of the discoveries we've made have actually led to patient benefit. And so, for example, we were the first to give leptin to children who lacked it from birth, and the dramatic benefits on those children's lives were staggering to witness.
Right. I also want to mention the national service that you actually brought to the UK for insulin-resistant patients. Tell me about that.
So over the years, we'd been studying patients with extreme insulin resistance, either people with diabetes who needed very large doses of insulin, or people with a range of endocrine problems. When we measured insulin, it was extraordinarily high. And we discovered a lot of the genetic diseases that lead to that, developed some biochemical tools that could help us diagnose them better. A lot of physicians around the country were puzzled by these patients. They were very hard to manage, very difficult the patients weren't getting a very satisfactory set of answers from. So we convinced the UK government and the Department of Health to fund a centre in Cambridge, which patients, free of charge, could come nationally for an assessment, for genetic testing, for biochemical testing, and we now provide that service to all of the UK. And patients come, visit us. We assist the doctors around the country by telephone support in helping them with these very complex patients. So I think it's worked very well, and it's been going now for about 6-7 years, and gets funded every year, and we've seen hundreds and hundreds of patients.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on your award. I know it came as a surprise to you.
It certainly
Your
did.
work is no surprise, but the phone call you got.
It certainly was, because I didn't even know I was eligible this year. I knew I was put up a couple of years ago, but I thought you had to be put up every year, so it was totally out of the blue.
Isn't that nice?
It was very nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. A really impressive and inspiring career there for Sir Stephen O'Reilly. That's it for today's show, but it's not the end for ADA TV as we bring you one more exciting show as the meeting gets closer to the end. Tomorrow we hear from the Outstanding Scientific Achievement Award winner and discuss whether HbA1c really should be the sole metric for diabetes control. Till then, keep watching online here at Moscone and in your hotel. Goodbye for now.